All right, so we just finished building the computer, and while you see it on, running, and in Windows, it's not gonna happen like that when you put it together. You need to do that on your own. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to gather all of the drivers and BIOS, how to flash the BIOS on this system, how to configure the BIOS, how to install Windows, how to install and configure all of the drivers to get you ready for gaming, office productivity, video editing, whatever it is you do on your PC. Oh yeah, and even how to connect it. But without wasting any time, let's get started. So before we get started over there, we need to come over here and create two thumb drives, one for Windows 11 and one for the drivers and the BIOS. Let's go ahead and start the download and preparation. So popping in this thumb drive, this was already made for Windows 11, and I'll link up a video on how to do that already if you don't know how to. This thumb drive, I've already blanked it out for our drivers and our BIOS. So we'll go to our motherboard support site, then we'll download the latest and greatest BIOS. The reason we download the latest and greatest, there's already a ton of fixes on here, issues that you may not experience if you already have the latest BIOS. So, and then of course, a lot of other things that newer BIOSes support. So anyway, aside from that BIOS we just downloaded, we're going to download the latest and greatest drivers for Windows 11 64-bit chipset. We'll get that in a second somewhere else. We don't need the onboard VGA drivers. We're going to download the onboard audio drivers. Then we're going to download the LAN drivers. And then we're not going to need the SATA drivers. Come under utility up here. We're going to download MSI Center, and we can download these later on if we'd like. I'm going to skip them just for now. So coming over here, I'm going to just copy everything and put it on my drivers thumb drives. So I cut and then paste over here. Might take a second. While that's copying, we're going to open up another tab and we're going to go to AMD.com. Come under resources and support, drivers, and then we'll select chipset. And then scrolling down a little bit, we have an AM4 processor, and then our motherboard is a B550 chipset. Then we'll click submit. This is what I was showing you over here that we're going to go ahead and skip chipset, since they're going to have an older version and they're also going to have a version that they've played with. This comes directly from AMD. So download. Since we're going to be using an AMD graphics card, we'll come again under resources and support, then drivers under Radeon graphics and AMD chipset, graphics. Then we'll look for RX 6000 series, AMD Radeon RX 6500 series, and then the AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT, and we'll submit. We'll select Windows 11 since that's what we're installing. Don't do auto detect and install. Download the AMD Software Adrenaline Edition, the latest version. Then once that's done, we'll click on the folder here, and we've already copied just about everything else over there. So select these two, cut them, and then drivers, and we'll paste them over here. And when that's done, this is a duplicate, so I'm going to delete this one. This is the BIOS file. Comes in a zip. Now you may not see the fact that it shows a zip or an exe or anything. Let me show you how to reveal that real quick. So for that, we'll come under the ellipsis over here, see more, and then we'll go to options. Then we'll click view. You want to make sure that show hidden files and folders is selected. Then you also want to uncheck hide extensions for known file types and then click OK. When you do that, then you'll see the .zip, .exe, and anything else they may have there. So I'll double click on this and go in that folder, and I'm going to copy this .aho file and then come back to the root of the drivers by selecting up here and paste it right at the root. So now that we've created the Windows 11 thumb drive and we've created the drivers and BIOS thumb drive, now we'll take it to the new PC and connect everything. Now that we've got that all created, let's go ahead and connect the computer. I'm going to start off with USB. Just connect them all up, and I have a lot all connected into one strand just so that I don't lose them. Okay, then you're going to have an HDMI connection. You want to make sure that you don't plug the HDMI up here if your board has onboard video as well and your CPU supports it, or maybe you're coming from an upgrade and you used to plug up here. Now that you have a graphics card, you're going to plug down here into the HDMI port. And now we'll plug in power. Now, I didn't connect the Ethernet cable on purpose because not all of you have a router around where you can connect one into your computer. So for that, When we get into Windows, I bought one of these just to show you how easy this one would be. So I'll hold that up here just for right now. Then I'm also going to plug in the, of course, the thumb drives on the front panel, since we're going to need them right when we start up. And let's go ahead and turn her on for the first time. When we turn her on, we're going to start tapping the delete key to go into the BIOS. Now, don't worry if on your first attempt your PC didn't turn on. It happens to even the most seasoned builder. You just need to look inside of your system, make sure you have everything connected properly. But anyway, now that we're in the BIOS, let's keep going. All right, so thankfully we've had a successful boot, and we can see right over here, 10/11/2023. This BIOS is a little old. What we're going to do is we're going to come under here, under M-Flash. System will auto reboot and enter flash mode. Do you want to enter flash mode? Yes. So we'll click here. Don't freak out, the computer just turned off. It'll turn right back on. 1 sec. All right, so then we boot into this mode. This is looking through each of the drives to find the BIOS, the AHO file we downloaded earlier. If we came under this one over here, this is the Windows thumb drive, so we're not going to find it here. I'll go back over here and then I'll select this BIOS file. Here it shows you current BIOS is FO or F0, dated 10/11/2023. The new version on the thumb drive is HO, which is build date March 11th, 2024. Then we'll select yes because we want to flash it. This part can be a little scary, but I promise you it's gotten so much easier over the years, and it only takes a few seconds. And now that we're booting back again after the BIOS flash, hit delete again on your keyboard so that we can enter the BIOS, and now we're back here. So we're going to configure the BIOS for what I have in this system. If you have any questions, please do ask below. I respond to all of them. Let's keep going. So first off, I want to get out of this GUI mode, so I'll click over here for advanced. It's still GUI, but not as bad. So we'll go into settings. Then we'll go into system status. Here we want to make sure we have the correct date and time. If not, installing Windows is going to be a nightmare. So April 6th and then 2024. So then coming back over here, now we'll go into advanced PCIe subsettings. Switch this to Gen 4, chipset to Gen 3, and we're good there. So we'll come back over here, and since we're not using onboard video, we'll set this to ignore. We'll leave LAN controller enabled. These two, will leave them disabled. That's more for network booting, and all this enabled as well. USB configuration. I'll go ahead and disable COM port 1. Windows OS. Then under OS configuration, make sure this is set to UEFI, not to CSM. And then we could skip the rest. Come under boot. Because of that, boot mode selection is UEFI. Make sure everything here is UEFI as well. Then come out of here. Security, we're good here. Trusted computing. Security, under trusted computing, you want to make sure that FTPM switch is set to AMD CPU TPM, which is enabled. Make sure down here, physical presence spec version, you're set to 1.3, not 1.2. Then we'll come out of there. And OC, coming down a little here. Make sure that XMP, if your memory is XMP compatible, is set to Profile 1 or Profile 2. Don't leave it disabled. You're going to lose a lot of performance if you do. So for example, currently we're at 2666 megahertz. Enabling it, now we're at 3600 megahertz, and this automatically sets our RAS, TRAS, CAS, and all the different timings on our memory. That way you make sure you get your money's worth out of your RAM. Now, since we've enabled the XMP profile, that sets just about everything down below automatically for us. We can overclock a little tiny bit over here by playing with the frequency, but that's for another video. We can see we're already at 3666 over the 2666 we were at the beginning. And then we'll want to click OC profile over here. We'll select the first profile. We'll save the name profile 1, save it. So now we have our default BIOS setting already saved. So now all we do is F10 to save and exit and click yes. So now after saving, exiting, and restarting the computer, now it's going to pick up the thumb drive that we have Windows 11 on, and it's going to start installing automatically. If it doesn't, you can always go back in the BIOS and specifically select that thumb drive. Make sure to set up your language, time, and keyboard and select next. Install now. I don't have a product key, or I do, but I'm not going to install it now. So I'll select I don't have a product key. I'll select the version of Windows we're installing. I'm installing 11 Pro, but that's dependent on your Windows 11 key. So I'll select next here. Then make sure to read through all of this incredibly important stuff and then select I accept. And next, we'll do a custom install. Now, since we only have one drive, we're not going to worry about the rest. If you had multiple drives in your machine while you were installing Windows, I recommend to unplug all of them, leaving only the drive you want to install Windows 11 onto. That way you don't lose any data and spread your boot partition. And then unallocated means it's never been used or is completely wiped. So we'll select that and click next. This part is only going to take about 3 or 4 minutes, depending on the speed of your computer. So your BIOS should be able to detect if Windows is already installed in that drive. If not, you may need to go back into the BIOS and tell it to boot from that drive. So then at this point, we've already booted back over here. And now let's select our language and our region, and yes. Then select your keyboard layout, yes. And we'll skip adding an additional layout. And then we can't find the network connection because we're not connected to the network. So here we're going to press Shift F10. Now we're dropping to the command prompt. So now click on the title up here for the cmd.exe to select it. And we're going to type OOBE /bypassnro. Then press enter. Don't freak out, that's going to automatically restart your computer, but it will continue the Windows 11 install. So we're back here, and now we'll select yes, yes. We still don't have a network connection. That's because Windows doesn't have the driver, and also we don't have anything connected. But now we have the I don't have internet prompt. So I'll click that. Continue with limited setup. It's not really limited. Enter your name. And click next. And your password if you want one. Click next. You could skip that. And select anything you want here. Accept. All right, so we're in Windows, we're done, right? No, we're not. Now we have to install all the drivers for the motherboard, then for the graphics card. Let me show you how to do that real quick. So here, we're going to select File Explorer, then we'll go to that driver's thumb drive we created. We'll select all of these, and maybe we can leave behind the BIOS. Then we'll hit Control-C to copy it. Then we'll click this PC, local disk, which is your C drive, right-click, New, and we'll title this folder drivers. Might take a second. Now, later on, you don't need to keep these drivers here. The reason I copy them over is, for example, when we install the chipset, USB disconnects for a little bit, and I don't want that to interfere with the install process. Again, you can delete it later if you'd like. And this is the other BIOS, we don't need it, so I'll just delete that. So chipset will be number 1 we install. Then copying drivers out of here. Because you don't want to install from within a zip file, you want to extract everything out of that zip file. We can delete that zip file if we'd like. And then the LAN, I'll go ahead and paste that out here. And then the MSI center. Since this one is a single file inside of the zip, we can install that from within the zip. That's okay. So now let's go ahead and install the chipset driver real quick. I don't like these prompts. They're good for security. So I'll click yes there. And I'll type in here UAC, and then I'll put this all the way down and click OK. Now I'm not going to be asked every 10 seconds if I want to do this. Now, while we're installing the chipset, a few times it might state restart your computer. Don't do that until this is complete. Now we'll leave everything selected here and click install. And just in case, if you right click on the start button and go to device manager, we can see here all the different devices that don't have drivers installed. As we install the drivers and everything else, you'll notice these start to disappear till they're all clear. And I'll close this out. And I don't like to restart the computer from within the installer, so I click close, and then I right click, shut down or sign out, and then restart from within Windows. I know we're not done here, but whenever software asks you to restart, you should. It only takes a few seconds. All right, now that we're done there, we'll come back into File Explorer, this PC, and under the drivers folder, now we'll select PCIe LAN, even though we're not going to use it. Setup. Okay, and this one doesn't ask us to restart, so just finish. And we'll come back over here and Realtek HD Universal Driver. That's for sound. And setup. Next. This one will require us to restart. Like we did before, no here, finish, and then right click, shut down or sign out, and restart. Now that we're done there, File Explorer, this PC, C, drivers, and now the AMD Software Adrenaline Edition 24.3.1. That's for our graphics card. And under additional options, we're already selecting full install. I like to do a factory reset, even though we've never had drivers on here before. It's always best to do that and then install. Sometimes when you select that during your install, it's going to restart the computer for you and then continue restarting afterwards. That's okay. So while I was installing the drivers, HDCP kicked in and then blocked everything from working, so I couldn't capture anymore. So at the end, I had to click finish and then restart. So now we're back where we are now. So now that we're in a steady state of Windows, I had to disable HDCP so that I could record using my AverMedia 2K+. So to do that, I right-clicked on the background, went into Adrenaline. Then up here, I just typed in HDCP overrides and I disabled this. So now I could record. The Adrenaline suite is pretty awesome. It allows you to prepare games so that you can optimize for them, optimize your graphics and graphics settings, probably select performance. And then after that, we can select additional things inside of all of those profiles. We can enable and disable multiple things inside of your display. My monitor is FreeSync capable, but because I'm using a capture card, it isn't. When I connect directly to it, it'll work fine. And all this good stuff here. And some advisors under performance. Here we can see frames per second, frame time, all that good information, and we can start logging it. We can also enable the overlay right over here where it'll show our frame per second, all that good stuff, but I'm going to disable it. It'll be distracting in this video. And then here we can enable different technologies from within the drivers. Getting out of here, right clicking on the background again and going into display settings. This is another important one. Aside from setting your display resolution and your scale under advanced display, if I were connected directly to my graphics card to the monitor, we would see AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT, and then we can change this to my monitor's refresh rate. But again, because of the capture card, I can only go up to 60. Not a big deal for now since we're not recording gameplay. That'll come later on. So we've built the machine, installed Windows, installed all of the drivers, also updated the BIOS and configured it, and then a little Windows optimization for gaming later on. But now we need to install Windows updates. Windows updates is incredibly important and even more important to stay on top of. That you'll get a lot of system performance and stability with that. With Windows updates, you're going to get a lot of performance updates, a lot of system stability updates, and again, performance. One thing I did forget to buy when I put together the system is a Wi-Fi adapter, and the board doesn't come with it. So for a few bucks more, I'll link everything down below. You can get one of these. Let me show you real quick. So we'll just open this up and plug it in to any of the available USB ports. Typically, you're going to need to install drivers. Sometimes you might get lucky and not need to install drivers. It'll just work because of what's included in Windows. On this point, you may not have access to the internet to download drivers. That's where this one comes into play, and it's pretty awesome. This one doesn't have drivers built into Windows, but the cool thing is plugging it in and going to this PC. This actually has storage built in. It's only about, what, 26 megs, but still, the drivers right here, we'll just set it up real quick. And we can go next or install all the way through. So it picked up the Wi-Fi adapter, and then we'll come down here to the little globe and Click here, and now shows Wi-Fi, and now it's going to show all of our Wi-Fi adapters. So 1 second while I connect to our Wi-Fi. All right, so we are connected. Now we'll click here and we'll type update and check for updates. And this is our first time, so I'm going to select get the latest updates as soon as they're available. And if I come under advanced options, receive updates for other Microsoft products, I'll enable that. And then come back over here to Windows Updates and then check for updates. Every time I build a new system, I also build a brand new Windows installer. That way you have all the latest updates and everything included. But there's always newer updates, so that's why Windows Updates is good to check. All right, and even though it was the latest and greatest, we can see here that we have a ton of updates. So this is going to take a minute. All right, now that all the updates have completed, restart now. This might take a minute. Now, depending on your OS drive, if you're on a hard drive, an SSD, an M.2 SSD, whatever, all these updates are going to take some time. On a hard drive, it could take hours. On an M.2 SSD, it could take a few seconds. On a regular SSD, a few minutes, not too much. But the slower your drive is, the longer these updates take. That only took me about maybe a minute at most. Now, even though we just updated, there might be some more. So we'll come back in here, check for updates. And yeah, like I mentioned, there are a few more, or maybe there's one more. There was an error on this one. All right, so that might take a minute. Just remember, after you update Windows and restart, when you come back in Windows, check for more updates. Keep doing that till you find no more updates. With that, I've taken you from the very beginning, which is looking for drivers and BIOS for your machine. That's incredibly important. If not, you don't have anything. Then creating the Windows 11 media. After that, connecting your machine, powering it on for the first time, flashing your BIOS, configuring your BIOS, installing Windows, and installing all the drivers and Windows updates. So now, at this point, you're ready to do anything and everything you want with your PC. In the next video, we're going to be gaming just to show you how powerful this PC is, and then we might do a little more. But anyway, this is Iggy with ThisBytesForYou, showing you how to update the MSI B550 Pro Series motherboard, and then how to install Windows and everything all around it. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.